Let's look again at how we speak about the future in Spanish. We saw that we have a future tense, but we might not use it very often because, firstly, we can just use the present to talk about the future if we have some future context, some word like mañana, tomorrow, later, más tarde, or even another part of the sentence which shows us that we're talking about the future, we can just use the present. When we don't have that, we can use ir a, to go to. So, voy a, vamos a, vas a, which is also present tense. Voy, vas, vamos, it's present. But we can use it to talk about the future. So, for example, bailar, B-A-I-L-A-R, means to dance. We can relate it to ballerina. Ballerina actually is just dancer in Spanish. Bailarín in Spanish is dancer. So that's where we get ballerina from, bailar. So if you want to say we are going to dance,
Vamos a bailar.
Vamos a bailar. Good. If you had some future context, like later, más tarde, or literally more late, you could just say we dance later.
Bailamos más tarde.
Good. Bailamos más tarde. But you could have used that structure with vamos if you wanted to. You have the option. We can say bailamos más tarde, or we could say we're going to dance later.
Vamos a bailar más tarde.
Very good. Vamos a bailar más tarde. So we saw that we have a future tense. We have a future tense, although we might not need to use it very often because we have this situation in Spanish that we can use the present, or that ir a, to go to, is used even more often than in English. This structure of I'm going to do it instead of I'll do it is used even more in Spanish than in English. But we do have a future tense. And the future tense is luckily very related to the different versions that we found of the verb haber. Haber was a very irregular verb, this to have, that we used to go into the past. What was the trick that we used to find the different versions of this very irregular verb haber?
We use the vowels, the e and a
Good.
sounds.
We use these to take off from. We go, what are the two vowels in haber? E and a. Okay, e by itself means
I have.
I have, and a by itself means
He, she, it, or you formal have.
perfect. And from these we can find the other versions. So we have e for I have, and we have is
Hemos.
hemos. And we have a for he, she, it, you formal. For you informal, what would we do to a?
Us.
Us. H-A-S. Now completely silent this H. This H that we find in all of these forms. They have, or you guys have?
An.
An. So these are our different versions of haber. Now, these very sounds, so the sounds, because we're not including the H, the sounds, hemos, a, as, an, are the same sounds that we add on to the to form of the verb to get this future tense. So we have a verb like bailar, to dance. If I want to say I will dance using this future tense, I can look at how is I have from haber. So how is I have from haber?
E.
And I can just stick it on the end. But it's the sound that is the same. What we are sticking on the end of the verb is an E, not a H-E. So, I will dance.
Is it bailare or bailaré?
The ending takes the accent, and we said that in Spanish we are pushing the accent into the future, which is an interesting phenomenon. We spoke about how in Greek, for example, in the past, you pull it back into the past. So we find this phenomenon occurring in other languages as well. Here we are literally pushing the accent into the future, and we accent that ending and we say bailaré. Bailaré. I will dance. We will dance.
Bailaremos.
Bailaremos. He, she, it, you female will dance.
Bailará.
Bailará. They or you guys will dance.
Bailarán.
Bailarán. And you informal.
Bailarás.
Bailarás. Good. So we get the future tense without having to learn anything new. We just have to remember that we can look back at haber and see what the different versions of haber were and then use them to build our future. So in fact, we have two future tenses, let's say. We have will and would. They are both future tenses. Now, hemos, as, an, they work for all verbs. Ir, ar, it doesn't matter. They are all using these sounds to form will. And we have the same situation with would. Ir, ar verbs, they are all together. And our key sound for would is ia. So we add on ia to the end of the verb. We are accenting it again because it's pushing the accent into the future. And this ia actually gives us I, he, she, it, and you formal. So here I is jumping in with he, she, it, and you formal. So bailaría. Bailaría means I would dance, he would dance, she would dance, you formal would dance. Or it would dance if you can think of some context where that would make sense. I think you can work out what the rest would be. So let's try. How would you say we would dance?
Bailaríamos.
Good. The only thing is the accent stays on the ia.
Bailaríamos.
Bailaríamos. Good. They or you guys?
Bailarían.
Bailarían. And you informal?
Bailarías.
Good. So that's it. That's would. So the would and will share some characteristics as they are both different futures. No? They share the characteristic that we are adding on to the full verb. Bailar, bailaré, I will dance. Bailar, bailaría, I would dance. And they share the characteristic that they are stressing the ending, that the accent is going to the ending. And they share the characteristic that for both futures, we group all the verbs together, ar, ir verbs. So for both futures, we have one set of endings for all verb types. What was to go?
Ir.
Ir. Good. I would go?
Iría.
Yes, iría. So this actually works for I, he, she, it, and you formal. So in the would tense, we have I jumping in with he, she, it, you formal. How would you say she wouldn't go?
No iría.
Good. No iría. Good. What was to eat?
Comer.
Comer. How would you say I would eat?
Comería.
Good. I would eat, but I don't have time.
Comería, pero no tengo hora.
Tempo. Tempo we have in English.
Tiempo.
Comería, pero no tengo tiempo. Good. How would you say transformation?
Transformación.
Transformación. Good. So to transform?
Transformar.
Good. Transformar. How would you say it would transform?
Transformaría.
Transformaría. This you would use it if it was to say it would transform something else. No? So you could say it would transform the situation. How would you say that? It would transform the situation.
Transformaría la situación.
Transformaría la situación. If you wanted to say it would transform, and you mean it would get transformed, it would undergo a transformation, then in Spanish you will say it would transform itself. Now in English we just use the context to understand whether we mean to transform something else or it would transform. It would get transformed. But in Spanish, most of the time you're going to want to put that itself. What is that itself?
Se.
Good. Itself, se. it would get transformed.
Se transformaría.
Good. Se transformaría. What is contamination?
Contaminación.
Contaminación. To contaminate?
Contaminar.
Contaminar. Good. If you want to say it contaminates, how would you say it? It contaminates. Present tense.
Contamina.
Contamina. So, contamina would mean it contaminates, it's contaminating. No? Maybe we're talking about a factory and we say contamina. If we want to say it gets contaminated, we don't really have this gets in Spanish. No? So in Spanish, to give this meaning of it gets contaminated, we would just say it contaminates itself. Now, it doesn't mean that it's responsible for its own contamination or that it is literally contaminating itself. It's just the structure that we use to replace this gets that we don't have in Spanish. So if we want to say it gets contaminated and we're talking about the river, we would just say it contaminates itself, even though we all understand that what we don't mean is that the river is actually contaminating itself. So how would you say that? It contaminates itself or it gets contaminated.
Se contamina.
Good. Se contamina. Good. How would you say it would get contaminated? So it's not it would contaminate, it's it would get contaminated.
Se contaminaría.
Good. Se contaminaría. What is imagination?
Imaginación.
Imaginación. And to imagine?
Imaginar.
Imaginar. Well done for converting the j to h. Imagination, imaginación, imaginar. I imagine.
Imagino.
Imagino. You will often hear in Spanish, I imagine myself. How would that be?
Me imagino.
Me imagino. And here, it doesn't really change the meaning. Sometimes, adding this myself, or herself, itself, yourself, etc., doesn't really change the meaning very much. Imagino. Me imagino. I imagine. How would you say I would imagine?
Me imaginaría.
Me imaginaría. Good. I would imagine that he doesn't want to go. What is that we use? It's the same as what?
Que.
Good. So I would imagine.
Me imaginaría.
Me imaginaría that
Que.
he doesn't want to go.
No quiere ir.
So together, I would imagine that he doesn't want to go.
Me imaginaría que no quiere ir.
Good. Me imaginaría que no quiere ir.